Hello and welcome back to Bump Love. Acquiring an education is seen as a rite of passage in most parts. We have our children going to school as early as 3 years old, and this goes on until the sunset years of their lives. Today, we discuss a different philosophies on education. And just so we are on the right page, education is the process of facilitating learning or the acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, or habits. Ladies, what does education mean to you?
I think for me it's acquiring knowledge, simply put, like acquiring, like how do I know that you're female, or how do I know what you have on your head, or how do I know what you're wearing, or how do I know how to sit here, or how do I know how the camera set works, or how do I know how social media works? Like that acquisition of that knowledge for me is education. Like simply, yeah.
So it doesn't differ from the definition, really.
Yeah.
No, it shouldn't give, but then what is that to you? Like I'll say that education to me is acquiring knowledge, but what is knowledge to me? Knowledge to me is power. Knowledge to me is everything, and then in that sense, education to me becomes like a gateway to success. Because for you can never have too much of knowledge, unless maybe you're crossing over to the side of psycho. When you're not too much, then you become, you know. So for me, that's really what it is. And I wanted to quote Oprah on it because it's something that I love how Oprah does her things.
Isn't it interesting?
Yeah, so for her, she said once that education is the key to unlocking the world. It's like a passport to freedom. And that's what I really see education as. What does it mean to you?
I think for me, so not very different from you, but I think for me education is exposure. Just opening your eyes and your mind and your intellect to things that you didn't know, but now you know and can help you then unlock the world or unlock opportunities. Opportunities for you to create wealth, opportunities for you to meet people, opportunities for you to see the world. Because when we are born into like a little unit. We know mommy, daddy, and even that we have to sort of be educated that this is your mother, this is your, okay, not so much your mother or your father because you know that from birth, but like, so why are they together? Why are they staying in the same house? What's a family unit? So for me, that's what education means. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I flopped the first time. So now I failed the exam. So if you had to ask me, so for me, what education means for me is a key. It's a key. It's a key to doors. It's a key to whatever is locked. Like I don't have that information. I don't know it. Immediately I get to know. It's like a certain key has opened. So then to open to opportunities. It will open to, you know. Anyway, So for me, education is a key.
So for me, I'll start with a quote. If you think ignorance is expensive, try not being educated. So education is power. Education is something that needs to be a part of us on a daily, like not just books, because some people could understand that, education, I went to university and had an education, but it should be past that. It's something that, like Manuela said, will open up doors for you. You know, you'll have a job after you're educated. So for me, it's power. It's power.
To be honest, I think you've said everything I would have said. So if I were to add to that, I'd say education is also culture, or a culture, you know. Once again, I'll use the same words. It exposes you to different type of people, you know, understand their norms and ways. And I think it's one way of making the world a global village. You know, if you sit in your Chanamkaka house, the farthest you'll go is, you know, the sub-county and whatever. But when you open your eyes, or your life you get educated, then a person in Chanamkaka is able to know what the weather is like in Greenland. So that kind of brings the world together. But otherwise, everything everybody else has said kind of sums it up.
So what was your parents' views on education, and how different is it from how you best learn now?
So my parents gave me what they knew. I think at the time it was just traditional education. You go to a class, you sit down, you know, there's a teacher in front of you, a chalkboard, chalk, you know, is writing stuff. The traditional education that we knew back then. Today things are very different. You know, we have more child-centered learning, which, to be honest, I think is the way I would have preferred to learn, to have that sort of attention. And in a way it was provided because the primary school that I went to was very close-knit. It was a school that was started by the church that I attended, and so we were like the pioneers. So we're very few in our class. And that helped. But then, of course, I wasn't there for all my education. I went to a secondary school where we were a lot more. My God, I studied with bright children. I went to Gaza High School.
We studied with the bright children.
With the bright children,
Where are they
the likes of
today?
Fumlas.
Who knows?
I also ask.
So for me now, that exposed me to, you know, we are not all the same when it comes to intellect. We all learn differently. And I feel like my time in Gaza, while I'm happy that I was given that sort of exposure, I struggled in terms of my ability to learn. I would have preferred, you know, a more child-centered, a more focused way of learning. And I don't even know if that's there in secondary schools here in Uganda, but that's how I think that I learned best, with somebody being able to repeat stuff or maybe employ different ways to teach me, as opposed to just stand in front of the class and write stuff, you know, on a chalkboard and then do exams at the end. So yeah, I just wanted to create that comparison between what my parents knew and how I think I learned and what I experienced eventually.
I think my parents as well, at the time, because of what they had at their disposal, I was taken through so ultimate goal for them was get employed in one of, be employable. And not just employable. Like when you say the name of the place where you're employed, everybody should know it. So how does that start for them? I will take you to the best schools. My parents didn't have that much money, but I studied with rich children. I studied, at that time, Kampala parents was ministers' kids. We were rich kids, basically. But my dad decided to put any drop extra that he could. So he went to school with people who had the latest sneakers, the latest bags. For you, he just wanted you get the education, you know? And then you're also in a place where, because these are children of means, they are more exposed, so you'll find some kind of creme de la creme. They're like really smart children as well. And then, for me, and then after that, you pass there, so now I've given you a background, a base. Then you have to get the points to get into a top-notch traditional school. Because for them, tradition was everything. They were very strict. They believed in a strict way of learning. There was no here or there. You had to, that is the basics, and that is what it was. That the delivery of which was so conventional that, like Rachel, I struggled. I only learned, I think, when I was on campus, because that's when we were given the freedom of choice to do whatever you want. That's when I got my best grades. And that's when I realized that, I was not really rebelling against something that was right. It just was not for me. And even if I struggled through it, I hated school. I hated school so much until I was given a chance to choose what I wanted to do. I made the decision to do economics. That means remove the physics and the chemistry and the biology that I don't understand out of the way and concentrate on what I can do. And then, not only that, deliver it in an environment that is not as hostile. Gayaza was hostile.
If Bumla would speak about Gayaza, I would
if I were to write a notebook about my high school experience, I can't even talk to half the girls that I went to school with, because I didn't understand why someone would behave like that. You click, because for them, when they admitted you into the school, you had been shaped somehow. They believe if you get a 4, 5, or 6, you're a certain kind of person. They label you. Yet you're getting a 4, 5, 6, and yet you're behaving like someone who got a D2. You click, So my issue, like hers, was that putting you in a box and deciding that is what we're going to do. So what I decided to do for my child, because as I said in a previous show, it kind of worked, so I decided to do that half and half. You know, have that strict kind of environment, but not hostile, not harsh, not imposing. So I try to go for, you know, a balance of holistic as well. The type of school, it's here, not there. And then where the gap of education is filled in by me after that. So that's the approach I'm taking with my child.
I don't know if there's anyone who was not raised in a conventional, traditional education.
Some people liked it.
So it's interesting that you guys speak the way you did, but for me, I thrived in that environment. Like, I don't know how to explain it to you. No matter where I was, I absolutely thrived in it. So it was such, you know, when this topic came up, for me to just kind of think through it and realize that even if I thrived in that environment, I feel like I learn better in a different environment altogether. So I'm kind of like those chameleons. Whichever environment you put me in, I will adapt. So I appreciate, yes, I'm a survivor. I appreciate that about myself. So if you ask me how I prefer to learn right now, I prefer to experience education. Like all the things that you've told me at Saskatchewan or Canadian prairies, you just take me there. Then I also realize that experience works for me. Also too, for me, I prefer to learn in an ever-changing environment. So I want that if you came and you read to me a story last week, next week let me watch a movie. The next week let's act a movie. The next week maybe sing a song. The next week, and it doesn't matter whether I'm on campus or I am doing my PhD or I am in kindergarten. I just want a change in how the methodology or the way, the things that I'm learning are being administered to me. So yeah.
My parents raised us the way kids are being raised now.
Oh, really?
Yes, without a doubt. Maybe because of the way they were raised. My dad got a scholarship, I think, when he was about 19. Then my mom went to studied in Austria, like from about 16 years. So when you have parents who have already been exposed, it only made sense that we started going to schools like the ones we are pushing our children to go to. And also when I started having children, like my husband used to tell me, Angie, for me, the first time I entered a class was P3.
Wow.
Otherwise, P1 and P2 you study underneath the tree.
Oh.
Okay. Yes.
And who's the instructor?
The teacher, but under that tree.
An external teacher would come.
Remember the village schools. I'm now talking about I'm now talking about OJ. Yeah, so for them, school P1 and P2 you study underneath the tree. So P3 is when you get into a classroom. But he was able to understand the value, meaning if you grew up studying underneath a tree, it doesn't mean that that's what you're going to do with your children as well. So in my case, what my parents did is what I did. But then for his case is that he did not do this, but then I think he saw the value in so we carried on the tradition as well.
So for you, how do you best learn?
How do I best learn?
Yeah, did you best learn? Yeah, yourself.
Okay, the truth is I have a very short attention span. So as you said, I prefer if things are creative. I remember when I was a child, I would write when I'm seated, then I would write when I'm this, then I would write when I'm standing, just to change it up. Because if you told me to sit in one place, the teachers would always say, Angie's ready to go.
All the time.
Somewhere. So I'm thinking the more, and even then we had all these things where, you know, you'd study like in this class, then you go out to see science things. But by the time we've done 20 minutes of science, now I'm ready for
next subject.
For drama.
Wow. So my father was a real scholar. In his village, he was the first person to graduate. So he didn't take education lightly. So he was those guys. Very smart in class. He went to the university on scholarship, so he really believed in that, and that's where he took us, you know, for traditionally, like you guys all shared. So for him, he had all those goals: go to university, go to this school. Just like I hated school. I loved school.
I think for me, the one thing I'm hoping the education that we're taking them through will help them do is to very quickly remove what doesn't work for them. Because I kind of feel like for me, we were, you know, you're raised, you get, and it's until you reach campus that you can start to choose. But that's not even choosing, you're testing. You are so lucky that when you tested on economics, you loved it, you ran with it.
How about
Me,
A-levels? Don't you do that?
No, for me,
you kind of choose, but you see again.
you've already been nurtured already in a certain way. Yes.
I wanted to do economics. I could not do economics and history.
Why?
And math.
Yeah, you couldn't.
Now you see,
I was good
my
at math, I
school,
was good at economics,
Yes.
and I was not able to stroke. I ended up having to do 3 subjects, and yet I
Yes.
was required to do 4.
4.
Because the combinations were not
the
coming.
problem, I think it's the because for
Yes.
me, A-level, I did biology, accounts, literature.
What?
None of this.
Yeah, you don't know our problems. You don't know our problems. You don't know our
Because
problems.
my friends were doing like biology and whatever, and she was going to be a
Your
lawyer.
problems, your problems were different. For me, now I'll give you an example of myself. There was what I desired to do, and there was what I was capable of doing. So because of what I was capable of doing, I was in physics, chemistry, mathematics, technical drawing, blah blah blah. But if you came to ask me, like what I desired, not even what I desired, but like where I would thrive best, it wasn't in physics and chemistry. I can do it even now. If you give me an example, I am capable of doing it, but it's not what I'm here. I'm happy. But guess what? When I found this out, 20 how many years old, 25 years later, and even then I went through a lot of testing, because I remember going onto campus, first going into my engineering classes and going like, then going into statistics,
What's going on?
Manuela,
then going into psychology.
What's happening?
Testing. That's why I said, for you were lucky. Immediately you went in, you loved economics, you ran with it. For me, I was in a place where I was just like, I don't know, and I was running out of time. You understand? I could no longer test and sample. So what I'm hoping for my kids is that confusion can quickly be removed. Like, I mean, there was a time I thought I was going to be Beyonce. I was a great singer and a dancer. Yeah. I'm serious, guys. There's a point in my life. No, and I'm telling you guys, I even went for idols. Don't play. I was there doing physics. Yes. Why? That confusion, especially for people who are really gifted, who can do anything. It's such a struggle for us. Yes, you can thrive anywhere. There was a time I even thought I was going to go into politics. You understand what I mean? So, wow, listen to you. Now you see, do you understand what I mean? So I feel like for me, what I want to give my children is the opportunity to see it all now. Start testing it now. Throw out, take it back in, throw it out, take it back in. No, they are feeling it. That's why I said they throw out, take back in, throw out, take back in. I'm giving them not 25. No, they're just going to see what they like and what they don't like. I mean, there was a time I thought I was going to be an actress. You people, I don't know if you understand. I acted in this Ugandan. Please. So for me, I want to give them an education that allows them to taste, to feel, to experience, to interact, so that by the time they get to a certain age, they are not guessing. They know what they love. They know what they enjoy. They are digging into it. Yeah, that's what for me I hope. So I really believe that when they grow up, they are going to be the best version of themselves, because they'll have gone through the chaff and taken it all out. Yeah.
So education to me is leverage. Honestly,
Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
I feel that it gives them competitive advantage in the future, an advantage to do what? To create impact, not only for themselves, but for the society they live in. I like it all the time. Manuela says it. She says it a lot, that you're not raising children for yourself. You're raising children for the world. So what, for me, education gives, there's so many theories. I hear debates a lot about people who say, but how come the richest people dropped out of school? Oh, how come Mark Zuckerberg, he didn't finish his college? How come, what's the other one's name? Bill Gates didn't. But I'm going to tell you, some people, that's what education does. When somebody tells you that Mark Zuckerberg is a college dropout, some people, that's all they want to take away, because success to them is measured by how much money you receive later. For them, it's wealth financially. If you go and really read about Mark Zuckerberg, for you, are you dropping out of Harvard University? Have you reached Harvard? If you go and talk about, before you drop out, and remember, Mark Zuckerberg dropped out He actually invented Facebook,
While
founded
you're
Facebook
in-
while
yes,
in school.
yes.
So
Which
that
explains why he
disciplines,
dropped
so isn't education supposed to be a good thing?
Yeah.
Then they go to Bill Gates. They'll tell you, he was bored, he just dropped out. Bill Gates also dropped out of Harvard. Harvard. You want to drop out of where? SSS. To do what? To open a shop. Is that shop going to create impact? And let me tell you, Bill Gates also founded Microsoft. The ideas of Microsoft
Started from there with his college mates. Yes.
with his college mates. Let's move.
Yeah.
Oprah Winfrey also, my dears, they talk about her. Oprah Winfrey dropped out of school to pursue a media career.
Yeah.
She was in her final year. She went and started pursuing and then eventually realized, hey, this career that I need
some education.
But she went back to school and finished. For you, have you finished university before you start talking? Like, I feel like you need to understand that if you're going to have these kinds of debates, that what is the use of an education, then maybe you have to also be able to define what success means to you. So for me, impact is success to me and to my child subsequently is impact. What impact are you creating, not just for yourself, but for the world? And that's just what it is.
That's powerful.
That is, I mean, I don't even know how to follow that, but
Good luck.
I feel like
Good
you
luck.
gave us a pep talk. So when I see Micah, I feel like he's going to be a creative, and I mean, I could be wrong. Like you, his attention span is, what I think that education is going to do for him is based on what I felt education means to me, which is to unlock doors and give him a platform and opportunities to speak to people who can then unlock more doors for him. So having an education, and I like how you've put it, having an education, it elevates you.
True.
You don't leverage, that's the word you use. You don't have the same bargaining power as somebody who didn't get an education.
Very true.
You can walk into doors that someone who didn't get an education cannot walk into. I'll give you an example that is similar. When I was working at NTV as a news anchor, just that title alone opened so many doors for me. I walked into spaces and people immediately recognized me. I feel like that's what education does for you. Obviously, you have to go the extra mile to express yourself and showcase yourself, but you already have an advantage. And I hope that that's what the education that I'm pursuing for Michael will do for him and my children to come.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Once again, I completely agree. I'll just add to Pumla's by saying that when we say things like, for example, so-and-so fell out of university, he fell out of Harvard, then you go ahead and say, even if you're falling out of our Harvard, Makerere, you are in a third world country.
Hello.
This is not the land of opportunity. So the odds are not in your favor. So it would help if you study as far as possible, gain as much knowledge as possible to open those doors, because the person who hasn't been to school will tell you. Will tell you how difficult it is just even to open a bank account because you can't write. So
And there you have it. Rosette put it mildly, but you think education is expensive. Try ignorance.
True.
We've had our different philosophies on education, and from us to you, education might seem like something, a rite of passage now, but the impact it has on your child in the future is massive. So it is upon you. Education, by the way, is a human right. It's recognized as a right in most international conventions. So the responsibility is on you, the parent, to make sure that you invest in your child's education. And you know where you can do that outside the formal setting? Kampala Serena Hotel. You can bring your children to brunch every Sunday from midday to 4 p.m. Children pay 65,000 shillings and adults just 110,000. Invest in your children informally. That's one route to invest informally in education, isn't it?
Education.
So we leave this to you. The opportunities education gives your child are vast. Until next time, with love from Bump Love.